Leonardo da Vinci, the boy who never stopped asking why. Have you ever met someone who seemed curious about everything? Someone who looked at the world differently, seeing questions where everyone else believed they had already found the answers. More than 500 years ago, a boy like that lived in a quiet village in northern Italy. He wasn't famous, he wasn't wealthy, he wasn't powerful, he was simply curious. One peaceful morning, he stopped beneath a tree and watched a bird gliding across the sky. Everyone else continued walking. He stayed quietly observing every graceful movement. The bird disappeared beyond the hills, but the boy remained there. Instead of admiring its beauty, he wondered how something so heavy could fly so effortlessly. That simple question became another. Then another. Soon curiosity became a habit, guiding every step of his life and shaping the way he understood the world. He studied rivers, clouds, plants, animals, machines, music, mathematics, and the human body. To him, every subject was connected by the same invisible thread. Most people searched for answers. Leonardo searched for better questions. Every discovery encouraged him to explore even further instead of feeling satisfied with what he already knew. Centuries later, the world would remember him as the painter of the Mona Lisa and one of history's greatest inventors. Yet those achievements tell only part of his story. His greatest gift was not a painting or an invention. It was showing us that curiosity can change the way we see ourselves and the world around us. This is the story of Leonardo da Vinci, a man who never stopped learning because he never stopped asking one simple question: why? Where curiosity began. Spring arrived in Tuscany. Morning sunlight covered the vineyards, the olive trees, and the rolling hills. Birds sang across the countryside as another peaceful day quietly began. Hidden among those hills stood a small village called Vinci. Few people outside the region had ever heard its name. Nothing suggested history would remember it forever. On April 15, 1452, a baby boy was born there. His name was Leonardo. No one could have imagined how greatly he would influence the future. Leonardo's father, Ser Piero, worked as a respected notary. His mother, Caterina, came from a farming family. Because they were unmarried, Leonardo's future seemed uncertain. As a child, Leonardo preferred exploring forests and fields instead of staying indoors. Nature quickly became his favorite classroom, offering lessons no teacher could provide. He watched insects crawling across tree bark. He followed butterflies through wildflowers. Every tiny creature seemed to have something new waiting to be discovered. One afternoon, a hawk floated silently above the valley. Leonardo stood completely still, carefully watching every movement until the bird disappeared beyond the distant hills. Most children would have continued playing. Leonardo remained there, wondering how the bird balanced so effortlessly against the wind without falling from the sky. That afternoon changed nothing around him. The trees, the birds, and the hills remained exactly the same. Only Leonardo's mind had begun seeing the world differently. Long before he became an artist or inventor, Leonardo became something far more important. A child who believed every question deserved another careful look. During the Renaissance, most children learned their family's profession. Leonardo was different. Instead of accepting how nature worked, he wanted to understand why it worked. History often begins quietly. Sometimes the greatest journeys start with nothing more than a curious child asking one simple question. The peaceful countryside taught Leonardo how to observe nature. But his growing curiosity needed a larger classroom. That classroom was waiting in one remarkable city, Florence. Florence, where talent met opportunity. As Leonardo grew older, his curiosity led him beyond the peaceful hills of Vinci toward Florence, one of the most exciting cities in Renaissance Italy. Florence was alive with artists, merchants, architects, and craftsmen. Every street echoed with new ideas. Creativity seemed to fill the air itself. For someone who loved learning, Florence felt like stepping into an endless classroom. Everywhere Leonardo looked, people were building, painting, inventing, and discovering. Before long, Leonardo joined the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio, one of the city's most respected artists and teachers. The workshop was much more than an art studio. Students learned painting, sculpture, engineering, architecture, metalworking, and mathematics under the same roof. Leonardo loved every lesson, yet he asked questions that few other students considered important. He wanted to understand what existed beneath every visible surface. If he painted a hand, he wondered how its bones moved. If he painted water, he questioned why light reflected differently at sunset. His curiosity soon became impossible to ignore. Teachers recognized that Leonardo wasn't simply learning techniques. He was searching for deeper understanding. A famous story says Leonardo painted an angel so beautifully that even Verrocchio admired his remarkable talent. Historians debate the details, but his growing reputation is certain. Renaissance Florence encouraged artists to study science, mathematics, and engineering. Leonardo embraced this philosophy more completely than almost anyone of his generation. Talent may open the first door. Curiosity is what encourages us to keep walking through every door that follows. Florence gave Leonardo the tools to become an artist. Yet painting alone could never satisfy his curiosity. He wanted to understand what existed beneath every visible surface. Looking beneath the surface. One busy morning in Florence, Leonardo watched an elderly man laughing with friends in a crowded marketplace. The moment lasted only a few seconds. As the laughter faded, Leonardo noticed something others ignored. Tiny muscles moved across the man's face, changing every expression almost instantly. Instead of seeing a smile, Leonardo wondered how the smile was created. That question stayed with him long after the crowd had disappeared. He filled notebook after notebook with careful drawings of faces, hands, eyes, plants, birds, rivers, and countless observations from everyday life. Years later, Leonardo studied the human body in remarkable detail, hoping to understand how muscles, bones, and tendons work together beneath the skin. His studies were never driven by curiosity alone. Leonardo believed artists should first understand nature before trying to recreate it on canvas. He also watched rivers flowing around rocks, smoke rising through the air, and birds gliding across the sky. Patterns appeared everywhere he looked. Most people saw separate subjects. Leonardo saw one connected world, where art, science, and nature explained one another. Every page of his notebook became another conversation with nature. Every observation led naturally to another question waiting to be explored. Leonardo's anatomical drawings remain among the most accurate of the Renaissance. They demonstrate how closely he combined scientific observation with artistic practice. The greatest discoveries do not always belong to those who look first. They often belong to those who simply keep looking a little longer. As Leonardo uncovered the hidden patterns of nature, one mystery captured his imagination more than any other. Every time he looked into the sky, the same question returned: how do birds fly? The dream of flying. One bright morning, Leonardo stood on a rocky hillside. Above him, an eagle spread its wings and floated silently through the wind without flapping. While others admired the bird's beauty, Leonardo watched something different. He focused on the shape of its wings, the angle of its feathers, and every graceful turn. He opened his notebook and began sketching quickly. Every line captured another clue about how nature allowed heavy bodies to rise into the sky. Leonardo believed nature never made mistakes. If birds could fly by following natural laws, perhaps humans could learn those same principles one day. For years, he carefully observed eagles, hawks, owls, and even bats. Every creature offered another lesson about balance, movement, and the invisible forces of the air. His notebooks slowly filled with remarkable designs: giant wings, parachutes, gliders, and rotating machines appeared long before technology could bring them to life. Many people smiled politely at his strange ideas. Flying seemed impossible. But Leonardo never argued. He simply continued watching, drawing, and learning from nature. Although none of his flying machines ever carried a person into the sky, every sketch brought humanity one small step closer to understanding flight. Centuries later, engineers discovered that many of Leonardo's observations about flight reflected real aerodynamic principles, even though he lacked the materials needed to test them. Great dreams often begin long before the world is ready. The courage to imagine tomorrow can become the first step toward changing history. Leonardo's dreams of flight filled countless notebook pages. Soon another opportunity would challenge his imagination even further. A powerful ruler in Milan was searching for a brilliant mind. A new city, a new beginning. Around 1482, Leonardo packed his notebooks, his paintings, and his endless curiosity. He left Florence behind and traveled north to the powerful city of Milan. Unlike Florence, Milan focused on engineering, military strength, and grand construction projects. It offered Leonardo an entirely different world, filled with new challenges. Leonardo wrote an extraordinary letter to Duke Ludovico Sforza. Instead of describing himself as a painter, he introduced himself as an engineer and inventor. He promised to design bridges, fortifications, canals, and machines for both peace and war. Only near the end did he quietly mention his artistic talent. The letter revealed how Leonardo saw himself. Solving problems mattered far more than choosing a single profession or mastering only one field. Life in Milan became incredibly busy. Leonardo designed festivals, stage effects, buildings, engineering projects, sculptures, and paintings while constantly filling new notebooks. Then he accepted a commission that would become one of history's greatest masterpieces, The Last Supper, painted inside a monastery dining hall. Rather than showing a peaceful dinner, Leonardo painted the dramatic moment when Jesus announced that one disciple would betray him before sunrise. Every face expressed a different emotion. Fear, disbelief, anger, confusion, and sadness spread naturally across the table, making viewers feel part of the scene. Leonardo experimented with a new painting technique for The Last Supper. Although the artwork began deteriorating quickly, its emotional power transformed Renaissance painting forever. Great artists do more than paint beautiful pictures. They help people feel moments that happened hundreds of years before they were born. While the people of Milan admired Leonardo's masterpieces, his greatest work was quietly growing inside hundreds of notebook pages filled with ideas, sketches, and endless questions. The Notebook of Endless Questions. Visitors entering Leonardo's workshop expected finished paintings. Instead, they often found piles of notebooks covered with sketches, diagrams, questions, and unfinished ideas. Leonardo carried notebooks almost everywhere. Whenever he noticed something unusual, he immediately wrote it down before the thought could disappear forever. One page explored the movement of flowing water. The next examined the human heart. Another described bridges, musical instruments, or flying machines. His notebooks never followed one subject for very long. Curiosity guided every page, connecting science, art, engineering, and nature into one continuous conversation. Leonardo believed observation came before knowledge. The more carefully people looked at the world, the more questions they would naturally discover. One unusual habit still fascinates historians today. Leonardo often wrote backwards from right to left, making many pages readable only with a mirror. No one knows exactly why he preferred mirror writing. Some believe it protected his ideas. Others think it simply suited his left-handed writing style. Even after becoming famous, Leonardo never stopped filling new notebooks. Learning remained more important to him than proving how much he already knew. More than 7,000 pages of Leonardo's notebooks still survive. They contain observations on anatomy, engineering, astronomy, geology, mathematics, botany. Knowledge has limits, but curiosity does not. The people who continue asking questions never truly stop learning, no matter how much they already understand. Among thousands of notebook pages, one unfinished portrait quietly stayed beside Leonardo for many years. The mysterious smile on that face would eventually become the most famous in history. The smile that changed the world. Soft morning light filled Leonardo's workshop. An unfinished portrait rested quietly on an easel. He studied the woman's face without touching his brush. Most artists would have considered the painting complete. Leonardo disagreed. He believed every tiny shadow, every gentle transition, could make the portrait feel more alive. The woman is widely believed to have been Lisa Gherardini, the wife of a wealthy Florentine merchant. Today, however, the entire world knows her by another name, the Mona Lisa. Leonardo returned to the portrait again and again. Sometimes he painted for hours. Other times, he simply observed, searching for details that others would never notice. He applied countless thin layers of paint, blending each one carefully. Gradually, the face appeared softer, warmer, and almost alive beneath the gentle light. Then came the smile. Was she happy? Was she hiding a secret? The expression seemed to change every time someone looked at it. Perhaps that mystery explains why people still stand patiently in museums today, hoping to understand a smile painted more than 5 centuries ago. Leonardo perfected a technique called sfumato, blending colors without sharp outlines. This created remarkably natural skin tones and subtle expressions unlike anything seen before. Perfection rarely appears in a single moment. It grows through patience, careful observation, and the willingness to improve one small detail at a time. As Leonardo perfected his greatest paintings, another chapter of his life quietly approached. An invitation from France would become the final journey of an extraordinary mind. The final journey. Leonardo was growing older. His beard had turned white. His hands moved more slowly, yet his curiosity remained as energetic as ever. In 1516, King Francis I of France invited Leonardo to live at the French royal court, honoring him as one of Europe's greatest thinkers. Leonardo accepted the invitation and crossed the Alps. Alongside his notebooks, he carried several treasured paintings, including the famous Mona Lisa. His new home was Château du Clos-Lucé, a peaceful residence near the king's castle. There he continued sketching, designing, and sharing ideas every day. Visitors expected to meet a legendary painter. Instead, they found an elderly man, asking endless questions about rivers, machines, nature, and the human body. Even in old age, Leonardo believed learning never truly ended. Every conversation offered another opportunity to understand the world more deeply. On May 2, 1519, Leonardo da Vinci passed away in France at the age of 67. His remarkable life came quietly to an end. Although the man was gone, thousands of pages filled with ideas continued speaking to future generations of artists, engineers, scientists, and dreamers. Leonardo spent his final years under the protection of King Francis I. Many unfinished notebooks survived and later became invaluable historical treasures. Some people leave behind wealth, others leave magnificent buildings. Leonardo left something even more powerful, a way of thinking that continues inspiring the world. Long after Leonardo's death, people realized his greatest achievement was never just a painting or an invention. It was the extraordinary way he connected knowledge itself. The man who connected everything. Imagine opening one of Leonardo's notebooks. One page shows a bird's wing. The next explains flowing water. Another studies the human skeleton. At first, the subjects seem completely unrelated. Yet Leonardo believed they all followed the same natural laws governing the entire universe. To him, art explained science, science improved engineering, mathematics revealed beauty. Nature connected everything into one endless conversation, waiting to be understood. Most people mastered a single profession during their lifetime. Leonardo refused to accept those boundaries, choosing instead to explore wherever curiosity guided him. Centuries later, historians began calling people like Leonardo Renaissance men, individuals whose knowledge extended across many different fields instead of only one. His greatest invention may not have been a machine at all. It may have been the belief that learning becomes stronger when different ideas connect together. Today, students still study his paintings. Engineers examine his designs. Doctors admire his anatomical drawings. Scientists respect his remarkable powers of observation. More than 500 years later, Leonardo continues teaching the same lesson. Curiosity becomes most powerful when it refuses to stay inside a single subject. Historians often describe Leonardo as history's greatest polymath because he contributed to art, anatomy, engineering, architecture, geology, mathematics, and many other disciplines. The future often belongs not to those who know the most, but to those who never stop learning and never stop asking better questions. Leonardo's remarkable life had come to an end, yet his curiosity never disappeared. Even today, it continues inspiring millions of people around the world to ask one simple question. Why? A curiosity that never died. More than 500 years have passed since a curious boy wandered through the quiet hills of Vinci, watching birds and asking questions that no one else seemed to ask. Today, airplanes cross oceans in hours. Surgeons perform extraordinary operations. Engineers build machines that once existed only in human imagination. The world has changed beyond anything Leonardo could have imagined, yet many of the questions that inspired him continue inspiring scientists, artists, and inventors today. Walk through a museum and you will find his paintings. Open a science book and you may discover his anatomical drawings. Visit an engineering exhibition and his ideas still appear. Thousands of visitors stand patiently before the Mona Lisa every day. They admire the famous smile, but they are also standing before the curiosity that created it. Leonardo never believed he knew everything. Even after becoming famous, he continued filling notebook after notebook with new questions, new sketches, and new possibilities. Perhaps that is why his story still feels surprisingly modern. In a world changing faster than ever, curiosity remains one of humanity's greatest strengths. Technology may transform the way we live. Knowledge may continue growing. But every important discovery still begins the same way, with someone willing to ask a simple question. The question that changed Leonardo's life was never, "How can I become famous?" Instead, he kept asking, "How does the world really work?" Historians remember Leonardo da Vinci as one of history's greatest polymaths. His work continues influencing art, engineering, anatomy, architecture, and scientific observation more than 5 centuries later. Perhaps you will never paint like Leonardo. Perhaps you will never design flying machines. But you can choose to look a little closer, think a little deeper, and remain curious every single day. Every extraordinary journey begins with an ordinary question. For Leonardo da Vinci, that question was, why? Perhaps your story begins with the very same question. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed learning English through history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next extraordinary story. Because history isn't just about the past, it's one of the best ways to learn English for the future.